This next chapter is about learning self-defense. Teaching our child self-defense, introducing the whole terminology and why it's necessary, and as an adult, understanding what works and what doesn't. In the martial art industry and self-defense industry, it's usually led by ego. My technique is better than yours, and I've been doing this for 48 years, and all that nonsense doesn't matter, guys. A good practitioner has a good technique, and when it comes to self-defense, your skills might sit on a shelf for 10 years, 15 years, and then you have to use them at a moment's notice without stretching in an uncontrolled environment with someone you've probably never met, and not a padded surface. There is not a referee, a rule book. None of that matters. I've been in use of force after use of force, working in corrections and law enforcement, and I remember specifically my first major use of force. The one thing that went through my mind is, we're not in Kansas anymore. This is real. I'm not doing a jump spinning heel kick. That's great for the mat. That's great for sparring. However, there were a lot of techniques that did work, but the adrenaline and the fatigue and the reality of it, and you see your own blood, and this other person wants to physically hurt and stop and maybe even kill you. That's real. And remember, the attacker always controls time, place, and method. So when we're teaching our kids, it's always best to seek out, and when if you're an instructor and you have the parents in front of you, you are that authority. If you're a Cobra instructor, you have a law enforcement-based self-defense program. It doesn't get any more realistic or legitimate than that. So they should be coming to you for their hands-on training. But if I'm asked all the time as a teacher and martial art instructor, what kind of training should I get for my child? Well, there's two different types of training. Martial arts is great to build their confidence. It's a reward system. They're going to lose weight. They're going to get flexible. They're going to learn some physical techniques. They're going to learn how to memorize their kata and their form. They're going to learn weapon, and they're going to get coordination. It's great. It doesn't transition as well into child safety if they're being abducted, realistic fighting another human being. And then there's two levels of physical altercation for a small child being 12 and under. If they're, an 8-year-old punches another 8-year-old, that's where their fighting skills come into play. However, if we're teaching our kids to kick and punch someone my size, or, and I'm not a big male, I'm about 210 pounds, but there's a guy, this guy's bigger than me, taller than me, and all that good stuff. But if we're teaching our kids kick and punch the bad guy, and believe it or not, there is a lot of that out there because they don't know the alternative. They don't understand it, or don't wrap their head around it, or they're tap dancing or unwilling to admit that their karate is not suited for 8-year-old versus 35-year-old. If a 35-year-old wants to abduct a child and that child says, punch, kick, they're not even going to feel it. The attacker's not going to feel it. They have their endorphins masking everything. And guys, there's not an 8 or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old that's going to ruin your day with any technique that's kick, punch, or any of that. They need to know how to anchor onto vehicles, do a low anchor on the leg, eye gouge, bite, become verbal, not get picked up, be proactive, keep their head up. These are different techniques. And I always give the example of the silverback. And I talk about the silverback analogy because my son introduced me to this. We're in Busch Gardens in Tampa, Florida, and we're in the silverback encounter. The silverback gorilla it's just a giant ape. They're from Africa. They're huge. And my son, to me it was funny, but to him he was serious because you're the father, you're the hero to them. Hey, Dad, look at him. You think you could beat him up? As a child would ask. My son was about 8 or 9 at the time, and I looked up at the stats, that this gorilla has, and it says, the average gorilla is 6'1", 6'2". They're around 450 pounds and 21 times the strength of an average man. So I said to my son, no, I don't think so. I wouldn't want to get in there. So what we're asking our kids to do, if we're asking them to fight a full-grown male attacker, or a full-grown male attacker, or a female that's much bigger than them, whoever the attacker may be, but they're an adult versus a child. I'm about 30% taller than an 8 or 9-year-old. I'm 3 times heavier, easily 21 times stronger and faster, which isn't bragging or saying much. They're smaller, weaker. They're not even developed yet, and I have the ultimate weapon, the weapon of manipulation. I can, coerce you into the van. I could play like a friend of the family. So those stats are even worse than, a man versus a gorilla. Okay, that child stands no chance when it comes to just kicking and punching his way out. However, they can survive that situation. They can defend themselves. So when we talk about the two different levels, child against child, child against an adult, completely different. So when you're recommending and you're looking for a martial arts school, or you're telling you're asked what should we be getting our child into, you have to be able to clearly define those two to begin with. The martial arts for kids are great. I mean, it makes leaders and confident, little human beings, and they grow up to be these, stellar adults that are achieving in everything they're doing. However, you're leaving school one day and a man gets out of his car and wraps his hands around the neck of your child or tries to pick them up. All those skills are pretty much useless. They have to know how to bring that larger attacker down. So that's when we segue into the Child Safety and Self-Defense Manual and the anti-abductions. It's a critical part of bullying. You got to know, who you can fight, when you can fight them, how you can fight them. That's critical and it's very important. And that's the clear message. Knowing the difference, you'll be able to explain that in your market. Because when an adult asks you as an instructor, I might take them down to this karate school over here or this taekwondo school, and that is not style specific. We say that just so we can say traditional martial arts. You can clearly say, well, if it's about bullying and child safety, I want to explain the difference, and I'm sure that's a great school, but this will prepare them for reality, where someone's trying to take them away from you forever. And we can also teach them how to defend themselves against someone their size as well. So we can get the job done all in one right here. So that's that communication to your market.